Story 1. He used his wealth and spoiled me materially as a means to justify or compensate for his controlling and possessive behavior that suffocated me until I left. He would take me on surprise holidays, but it doesn't matter in the end if he's not treating you right on a human level. He was emotionally unintelligent, entitled, and quite narcissistic. How they treat your emotions, their character, and how they respect you as a human being ultimately matters more than money. Story 2. Because he was a materialistic, narcissistic person who was only interested in anything on a surface level, including love. I'm not saying that wealthy individuals are generally like this. This was just my experience. Story 3. He used to give me benzodiazepines unknowingly and have sex with me. Apparently, he just liked it better when I was unconscious. I did speak to the police, but it would be hard to prove. He said, she said. Story 4. He kept bragging about his father's money and that he would take over the company. It was embarrassing, and I realized I could never fall in love with him. I broke it off 3 months in after he asked me to go on a 1-month cruise with him and his family. Fully paid for me. I decided that it just wouldn't be right for me to go on that cruise knowing I wanted to break it off. I'm still very proud of myself for making that choice at 22 as someone who grew up poor and had never even been on holiday, never mind a different country. It was my dream to travel, but it worked out well because now I get to travel due to my own hard work. Story 5. I broke up with him because he was an idiot who felt he was never wrong. My mom was so upset I broke up with him. She told me that money was more important than love and I should stay with him regardless of my feelings. So glad I didn't listen to her. Story 6. He wanted me to leave college, leave the country, and marry him. He was obsessed with my virginity and fertility. He refused to kiss me to preserve our marital night of bliss. He often told me he loved me because I was trainable and he could guide and mold me. After 3 weeks of dating, he proposed. The diamond was massive. He showed me what would be my new home. He still owns the property, and car with a driver. He had already purchased jewelry and chosen a few wedding dresses. Felt weird to me. I was 19, he was 40. He had never raised his voice or laid a hand on me, but it felt imminent. When I said no to his proposal, he immediately called me old and fat and said he would find a young, beautiful wife. I still shudder to think about that last sentence. I remember saying, "Insert name. I'm 19. What are you going to do? Go to a high school?" He didn't respond. He is now even more wealthy and still alone. Story 7. Because I wanted a relationship, not a wallet. He kept offering to buy me things. I just wanted us to be together. The only thing I ever asked for was a $90 kitten who was destined to be destroyed. I made it clear this was the only time I was going to ask him to buy me anything, and it was to save this funny little kitten. Story 8. I'm not a woman who left a rich guy. I'm a man who left a rich woman. She was always mean. The smallest thing made her mad, and because she never really had to worry about things and repercussions, she let herself think it was okay to just go crazy and then provide gifts and sex to apologize. Sex was cool, but damn, she was mean. Story 9. I dated a doctor who came from a very wealthy family. He grew up next door to a well-known country singer, for example. When I first met him, I finally understood what it meant to be swept off my feet. Fancy dinners, elaborate gifts, shows after shows, incredible trips. And yet, I was absolutely miserable through all of it. He was constantly reminding me that I was a problem, that my responses to his coldness were a problem. He isolated me from everyone, and when we got into an argument about how he shouldn't tell me when I can or can't go to the bathroom, I finally had enough. I was in therapy at that point, ironically at his request, and my therapist helped me see just what a narcissistic and controlling person he was. It took me 2 times to leave him for good because the love bombing was insane. I realized that no amount of money or prestige was worth how broken I felt inside. He needed me to be small so he could be big. Story 10. I went on dates with a guy who had his father's money. Initially, I kept the dates basic, choosing inexpensive places and paying for myself. He disliked those dates and wanted to treat me. I was hesitant but allowed him to do so for 1 date. His attitude changed completely, and he believed that since he spent money on a nice steakhouse and expensive wine, I owed him. He wanted sex and for me to be more submissive. He lost his mind. I blocked him immediately. Story 11. I dated a hedge fund guy for over a year. We lived together and were ring shopping. He said once we got married, I wouldn't work anymore, and he forbid me from getting a graduate degree. I dumped him, and he accused me of being a gold digger, which was weird and wrong. Months later, he proposed to an ex-girlfriend who was actually a gold digger waiting in the wings for him. He basically wanted total control over finances so he could cheat and have the final say over all the family decisions. No regrets leaving him, even though he's worth millions, and I've had to work harder for longer in my life. Whatever, you can't buy my dignity. Story 12. Money is great, but it cannot replace feeling appreciated or truly connected to someone. Some women leave because they want more than just a comfortable life. They want a partner who is emotionally supportive and makes them feel valued. At the end of the day, no amount of wealth can fix a relationship that does not make you happy. Story 13. I didn't know he had money when we got together. Unfortunately, having money didn't make up for his deeply problematic personality and the fact that he always had to one-up me. Story 14. Because to him I was an acquisition, not a partner. I was there only to check a box on his list, and once he had me, he put very little effort into caring whether I was happy or not. The only times he would get emotionally invested were if he thought I wasn't acting exactly the way he wanted me to. For example, I was feeling tired and ill and wanted to stay home from a long weekend away with his friends. That resulted in a long argument and gaslighting me until I relented and went, and then he was mad that I didn't act like I was having a good time because I wasn't. I was sick. Story 15. We were in a long-distance relationship, and I was so infatuated with this guy, going as far as uprooting my whole life to move to another country. I didn't tell him about my plans because I wanted to be able to stand on my own. While in the process of looking for an apartment and job in his city, the pandemic hit. A month passed, and he wrote me a heartfelt letter breaking it off. I was so sad for about a month. Then, by chance, a girl was suggested on my Facebook. Turns out she's his new girlfriend. I went back through old texts and recalled conversations we had. So many ignored red flags. Now, I go as far as being thankful for the clear cut the pandemic gave me. Story 16. He is an alcoholic. I could not deal with coming home to vomit everywhere and taking care of his new wound of the week. It was also embarrassing in public and seeing people shoot glances at me. Also, he had the audacity to brag about how women want him. I left the second he said that. Story 17. He was an absolute sweetheart but also a chain smoker. His apartment and bathroom were filthy and disgusting. He drank too much alcohol, and he stank to a level that I just couldn't handle. But as I said, he was a great guy, very caring and very sweet. Story 18. Because no matter how much men like to push the narrative that a woman will always stay if you have money, it's not true in most cases. Everything was bad in the relationship. Sex was awful, and the division of house labor was non-existent. He had horrible hygiene, used to his mother doing all his laundry even though he was 27, and always tried to use money to get out of problems. Men, if the only thing you bring to the table is money, you're not bringing anything. Story 19. Our values were incompatible. He believed that everybody is just out for themselves and used it as an excuse to do whatever he wanted regardless of the repercussions on his community. He mocked me for going out of my way to improve my community and work in a job that saves lives, even though it is stressful and does not pay that well. He was also incredibly insecure and tried to make me feel insecure by insulting my body and intelligence so that I would not leave him. He hated women and believed that women are all out to take advantage of men, acting like I was a gold digger even though I repeatedly turned down extravagant gifts and trips from him. In short, it had nothing to do with the money. He just sucked. Story 20. Never had a chance to answer this, so excuse me for flipping the question around. After I divorced, I dated a very well-off mid-level executive from a telecommunications company for a month. She valued her free time like it was being paid at work. She would only do things she wanted and wouldn't text unless she wanted to. For instance, if I sent her a message when she was off work, she'd ignore it half the time for half a day or more. But if she texted me and I didn't respond instantly, she'd spam me. Basically, I realized that because I wasn't making six figures, she considered my time to be worth nothing. She'd text me out of nowhere and ask me to do something out of the way for her. Like, would you stop by Michael's and see if they have a certain stamp for my crafting? But I couldn't even get a response if I was trying to ask how her day was. One day, she accidentally got a taste of her own medicine. I told her I was off on a Friday to play the newly released Red Dead Redemption 2, and then played all night and went to sleep around 7 a.m. She lost her mind because she had decided to take off last minute without saying anything and wanted me to come over and hang out. After all this, I basically asked her if she could meet for coffee so I could explain. I met her and explained that she treated me like I was less important than she was, and that I didn't appreciate being treated like a second-class citizen, so this would be our last time meeting up. I blocked her number and ignored every attempt at contact. She is single and still reaches out via text about every 3 or 4 months, and that was like 6 years ago. Story 21. At first, it was fun not having to worry about anything. He let me drive his cars and boat, gave me money to spend each month, and took me to great places. He seemed to sincerely trust me, which made me like him. Then, at the end of the year, credit statements came in, and he sat me down with the credit card that I had been allowed to use. Mind you, I never asked for these things, but I didn't say no when they were offered. Because I did not grow up rich, I was very conscious about spending. He even complimented my very basic needs in comparison to other women. He questioned every charge on the credit card, even things he had asked me to buy for him because he didn't have time to shop for them. One item stood out to me in particular. I made a $5 purchase at a gas station and then immediately after, a purchase for gas at Costco. He asked me what the $5 was for, and I honestly couldn't remember. I don't eat candy and I constantly have a water bottle with me, so I didn't stop for any of those things. And it was exactly $5. Then I remembered. On that particular day, I had fumes in my gas tank. I didn't have enough to reach Costco. Rather than fill up my car with expensive gas station gas, I put $5 in to get me to Costco and then filled up my tank. I knew right then and there I would be defending things for the rest of my life. The trusting me and complimenting my frugal purchases was all nonsense. I just couldn't live that way. Story 22. It was very off-putting and obnoxious how he thought that having money meant he could do anything he wanted and throw money at the consequences, and as an added bonus, he treated people poorer than him badly. I'd rather be with a dirt poor guy who is kind, thoughtful, and respectful and take a flower picked from the side of the road by him over a massive diamond ring from a disagreeable person. Story 23. I did it out of love, honestly. He wanted several biological children. I don't. So the most loving thing I could do was to let him find someone who wants to have all the kids he does. I am proud of myself for doing it, even if it puts me in an economically worse position, and even socially as I've lost a family who helped me so much. I will probably never be in a relationship that provides that kind of generational wealth. But at least I did the most loving thing. I hope the future will provide me with a safe partner who doesn't demand that I be pregnant several times to be loved. Story 24. Because he thought he could fix all of our problems with money. He wasn't extremely wealthy, but he had money. I felt so alone and neglected in our relationship. He would rather spend time playing video games than with me. He wouldn't listen to me when I spoke. He didn't take my feelings seriously, and would laugh when I was upset. He wouldn't help me around the house, and his way of putting a bandage on it was by taking me out or buying me gifts. I didn't want any of that. I just wanted to be treated like a person and have my feelings respected. No amount of money could make me stay with someone who thought my feelings were funny rather than legitimate. Story 25. He asked me not to move to New York to pursue a career in technology and instead stay with him where he could provide for me and spoil me, and I would never have to work again. All I had to do was give him children. I was 22 and he was 29. He was a nice guy, but he never thought about me or what I wanted. He just cared about how I would fit into his life and round out his accomplishments by being young, attractive, and the mother of his children. I said no and I moved. I never regretted it. Now I have a life, accomplishments, success, and wealth that I built all by myself. For myself, and no one can ever take that away from me. I'm proud of myself. Story 26. We didn't really connect anymore. It became all about business, and I was alone a lot. When I brought it up, he would get really angry and say he was working hard for us. I understand where he was coming from, but that wasn't the life for me. I am now married, and my husband gets insecure about finances after hearing about my ex, but I would choose this life 100 times over. So cliche, but we're a little less well off but happy this way. Story 27. He kept bragging about all the girls who want to sleep with him in Dubai, the luxury cars and apartments he has, and that I should be grateful for having a date with him, although he drove all the way to my city and invited me. I was finishing my food as fast as I could to go home and immediately block him.